Advanced brand theory. There is a lot of confusion about brands. People have very grandiose ideas. They want customers to fall in love with brands and become die-hard loyalists. In reality, brands are useful assets that make marketing more efficient. And like other assets, brands can be borrowed and they can be bought. You don't necessarily have to build a brand yourself. I was a global brand manager for Sony PlayStation. I managed multiple successful startup brands, and I studied brand management at Philip Kotler's Kellogg School of Management. Now, I'm going to teach you advanced brand theory to clean up a lot of this confusion. The first big principle to understand is that humans like things that are familiar. In general, the more you're exposed to something, the more you will like it. Familiarity is the most important underlying driver behind brands. One of the core functions of branding is to apply a familiar label to things that otherwise seem foreign. If you go to Amazon, you're going to see a long list of items that seem more or less the same. Buyers will gravitate to products with familiar labels. Those labels stick out in a sea of options. Example, a lot of popular electronics carry the Philips brand, even when Philips didn't actually manufacture them. The brand itself has tremendous value that attracts customers, and that value is separate from the product. So the second big principle is that brands are not products. Philips is a brand that product manufacturers license. This is one reason I don't use the 4 Ps. It does not decouple the brand from the product. The original marketing mix from Harvard did have the brand as a separate marketing element. At the Kellogg School of Management, we use the 7 Ts instead of the 4 Ps. These are product, service, brand, price, incentives, communication, and distribution. This model allows us to manage brands separately from products and to understand how brands create value in ways the product cannot. For example, one of the easiest ways to boost the performance of your Facebook ads is to pay a familiar influencer to create a video for you. In other words, you borrow a familiar brand to boost the sales of your product. Decoupling the brand from the product opens new opportunities. You might choose to license brands instead of building your own, or you might focus solely on brand management and outsource product manufacturing. One of the reasons marketers struggle in small companies is because they're trying to do everything at once. They're brand managers, product marketers, and retail marketers. It might be more efficient if you focused on something like product marketing. You then pay an influencer for their brand and partner with a retailer to handle the direct response marketing. Now let's talk about differentiation. In a minority of cases, differentiation matters a lot. For example, if you're selling a strategic purchase to a large business. Here, you want to prove that your product generates more profit relative to your competitors. The size of that profit is what makes you different. If you sell professional services, then buyers gravitate to narrow specialists. Your niche is a differentiator. But research shows that in the majority of cases, customers do not want substantive differentiation. If they're hungry, they want the familiar burger and fries. They aren't reaching for Jamaican street food. If they buy a pizza cutter, they'll get the standard circular blade with a handle. This gets back to principle number 1. People like what is familiar. Differentiated products are not familiar and are therefore usually rejected. Of course, there are exceptions like breakthrough technologies. Here, you're basically creating an entirely new product category, and that can be wildly profitable. But the more proven path to success is to just give people what they want, what they already know they want, what is familiar, what is trending. There's a myth out there that startups can only compete by being different, by carving out some little niche where there is no competition. But there are lots of startups that succeed by giving us the same old stuff over and over again. A new burger and fries restaurant, another accounting firm, another gym, etc. These aren't unique ideas. So the key to success isn't so much being different as being efficient. Most new companies are just not that efficient. This is largely because they're trying to do too many things at once. As Dr. Bruce Greenwald of Columbia University told me, startups need to narrow the scope of what they do to operate efficiently. I suggest differentiating in very superficial ways by having memorable branding. This is what Dr. Byron Sharp calls distinctiveness. Markets are actually very tolerant of similar products. Coke Zero and Diet Coke are pretty much the same, but people buy both. But the branding is superficially quite different. People like distinctive brands. This type of superficial differentiation is consistent with the principle of familiarity. Superficial elements like mascots make your brand more memorable and distinctive relative to competitors. So while your products may be mostly the same, your brands stand out. So if differentiation often doesn't really matter, what is positioning all about? In branding, positioning is how people perceive you. Positioning is built on associations. You associate your brand with things customers are already familiar with. Again, I want to stress how much familiarity underlies so much of branding. One of the big differences between beginner and advanced marketers is this. Advanced marketers understand that it's very difficult to force someone to buy something. It's much easier to tap into existing demand, existing desires, familiar ideas. Work with people's natural inclinations rather than against them. You can do this by aligning or associating your brand with things they already like. In this course, I talk about how Mandarin Oriental did this by associating with celebrities. Ping Jun builds his personal brand by aligning it with other well-known people like Robert Kiyosaki, Alex Hormozi, Grant Cardone, and Russell Brunson. He does a great job getting photos with these people. When people see these photos, they instinctively associate Ping Jun with those familiar people. Leveraging other brands is a great way to build your own brand. Experiments from metadata show that including clients' logos in your social media ads can boost performance significantly. I already mentioned how running ads with influencers' videos can also boost performance. I believe partnership marketing is the most underrated strategy. Most marketers make this one critical error that holds them back. They define their target market as their target customer. But the market isn't just defined by customers. It's also defined by collaborators, cultural trends, and so on. In fact, a good strategy might focus more on partners and trends than on the customers themselves. It may be more efficient to reach customers indirectly. One way to catapult your brand is by latching on to trends. In this course, I talk about the CMO of Yum Brands and how he taps into cultural relevance. He aims to create waves with his marketing instead of just a direct impact. How do you grow a brand? Here are some rules from Dr. Byron Sharp. Number 1, continuously reach out to all buyers of your product category. 2, ensure you are easy to buy. 3, get noticed. 4, refresh and build memory structures. 5, create and use distinctive brand assets. 6, be consistent. 7, stay competitive. I go into greater detail on these in the course. One of the key lessons from Dr. Sharp is that loyalty is largely natural and outside your control. You can't control if a customer dies, moves, gets married, goes bankrupt, or does something else that renders your product irrelevant to them. There's usually more upside in acquiring new customers than fruitlessly aiming for 100% retention. I wish I had read Sharp's book before I became a global brand manager. His advice is at odds with widely held marketing beliefs, but it is consistent with what I experienced hands-on. Building a brand requires understanding customers. I use AI tools like M1 Project to understand what customers want and what channels to use to reach them. I find AI particularly useful at surfacing hidden emotional drivers. I've also used focus groups, interviews, and surveys. One of the best research techniques is to simply email or direct message people to get their input. Now let's go into the academic side of brand management by looking at Dr. Chernev from the Kellogg School of Management. Consider his book, Strategic Brand Management. Brands create 3 types of value: functional, psychological, and monetary. Brands create a lot of the psychological value, whereas products create a lot of the functional value. But both create different types of value. Functional value. Brands allow customers to know that your product belongs to you and not to competitors. They also signal functional performance, such as Miele signaling good build quality. Brands also improve performance. For example, you might feel better from the placebo effect of taking branded medicine. Or your experience of taste might differ because of eating branded food. Or you might use brands to improve your credibility and secure more contracts. For example, by driving a Mercedes as a salesperson or having Mont Blanc accessories on your desk. All of those I listed are examples of functional value. Now let's talk about psychological value. Again, a reminder that you can get more of these details from Dr. Chernev's books. Brands can create emotions such as love, affection, compassion, etc. They also allow you to express yourself, your unique personality, or your socioeconomic status. Brands can also convey societal benefits like Tom's Shoes and UNICEF do. All of these are examples of psychological value. Lastly, brands create monetary value. For example, they can signal prices. A yellow sticker with your logo might indicate cheap. This demonstrates that brands aren't always about signaling higher status or more expensive products. There are also financial benefits, such as the ability to resell a used Rimowa suitcase or a Mercedes car. So how does all of this benefit you? Well, brands bolster your customer demand. They're more likely to buy a branded version of a product in many cases, to use it more, to buy it again in the future, and to talk about it through word of mouth. Brands amplify the effectiveness of other channels. The example I keep using is putting a known influencer in your Facebook ads to improve performance. Brands lubricate the sales process and are a key driver of purchase decisions in business to business, arguably the most important factor. They also make it easier to work with partners and to get and retain employees. Brands also allow you to increase prices and the value of your company. They are themselves valuable assets. I think of brands as multipliers that enhance the effectiveness of other marketing. In that sense, they're more valuable at scale. This is similar to other multipliers in the marketing department, such as product marketing managers. Their value increases with the scale of the company because of this multiplier effect. Whereas other functions like sales or demand generation don't need a lot of scale to be effective. Brands are assets you invest in as your focus shifts from the short-term income statement to the balance sheet. There are two types of brand tactics: brand design and brand communication. Brand design consists of brand identifiers, most notably your logo, character, motto, sound mark, product design, packaging, and brand name. But design also includes reference, such as places, people, objects, etc. For example, James Bond. I am a big fan of aligning your brand with other brands, such as those of influencers, and software your customers are already using. Communication includes media and creative. When companies work with influencers, they often think of them as media channels. In reality, they're a combination of media, creative, and reference. To wrap up, here's what I think you should do. Create a distinctive brand based on key elements such as a mascot that looks nothing like your competitors. Build associations between your brand and other things your target customers already like and respect. Partner with influencers, companies, and distribution channels that influence your target customers today. These can be found using AI tools. Piggyback off things like emerging trends that are bigger than your brand is today.